Hey, that is yours.
Oh.
I know you're supposed to be on there also. And
Oh, thank you.
fixed copy.
יש לכם.
Do we have too many? We could all slide down. Yeah.
This. Oh,
Yeah, slide down.
you mean
Yeah.
this way?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh wow, there's people up there too.
I have to stay up here for a while. So I need Danielle.
Finish. It's an interesting idea.
It's really big.
That's a great idea, but the problem is I don't want to hear myself.
Except for one who refuses to eat.
You can try.
Every time I let it go.
Ah,
I
without,
asked. I'm
without
gonna try
connecting
now.
with other place. You can do it like this.
Huh? Then the amp being up. No one get up. You should be able to just, yeah. I'm never worried about it being loud, ever. You should. I just feel like.
לשים אותו ולסובב אותו. הדבר הזה, טוב, המיקרופון עושה ככה, לא טוב ליהודים. תרביק עכשיו שאלה.
זה לא עובד.
Looking for my.
זה לא עובד.
רגע. לא יודע אם
Yeah, I
ג'וסי
need
מתכוון.
to be looking at the adjusted version. Oh, Carrie's here.
Do you have the adjusted version?
I'm looking at yours.
Looking like a diver.
The scripts.
Is someone sitting on the other side?
No, but we should put somebody on the side.
Do you want Maya?
Huh?
Maya?
Yeah. she's leading the Kaddish.
Do you want her up there?
Sure.
I'm just asking.
Yeah, let's fill it.
Move door.
Whenever you're ready, please. Whenever you're the boss.
It's hard to control.
Sorry. Erev Tov l'chulam. Good evening. Welcome, Congregation Sinai. With fewer and fewer survivors among us, the way that we remember the Holocaust is changing. Our program tonight is inspired by a model developed by the Shalom Hartman Institute in Israel and adapted by the Shalom Hartman Institute in North America. We're deeply indebted to the thoughtful and inspired work of many scholars and artists, and thank the Hartman Institute for making it available. Our program is called Hitkansut Yom Hashoah V hagevurah. The Hebrew word Hitkansut means convergence. It's a nuanced word, which conveys a sense of gathering together collectively, as in the word for synagogue, Bay Hitkansut. It also suggests entering, as in the word hikanes. Hitkansut also connotes a reflexive gathering in to ourselves, opening our hearts to memories, family histories, and inheritances. Modeled on the Passover Seder, our Hitkansut is a shared ritual during which we'll embark on several stops. Through song, poetry, personal testimony, and prayers, we're each invited to become participants. This evening, we will enter, remember, lament, confront, honor, and reflect. These are the steps we take as we gather and experience the Hitkansut Seder, the Seder of our gathering. Each of the 6 sections of this Seder builds upon the others. Each step we take along the path of memory bears out our responsibility to remember and stirs within us the resolve to remember responsibly.
We were not there. We did not experience or suffer it. And yet we take it upon ourselves the responsibility to remember and the commitment to remember responsibly. Even if I have no words and you have few. Whether we are far away or near, whether we are close kin of theirs or distant, we assemble a place within ourselves, among ourselves, a meeting place, a convergence of memories. We are present now. We were not there, and yet, let us enter into this gathering to remember the Shoah that annihilated 1/3 of the Jewish people, 6 million women, men, and children, including almost every single one of my grandparents' family.
We were not there, and yet, let us enter into this gathering to remember the Shoah that annihilated 1/3 of the Jewish people, 6 million women, men, and children. Let us recall the extermination decree against every Jew, wherever they may be, against every human being for being different. We are all survivors of the extermination decree. Let us remember the Jewish communities that were scattered, uprooted, and wiped out, from east to west, from north to south. Let us lament, murdered, like a candle in their memory. I lost 45 members of my family.
Let us confront evil, for at the entrance sin is crouching, then and now. And against it let us honor and exalt the dedication of those who fought. In the struggle for human dignity of women, men, and children, and of the righteous among the nations, let us praise the uprising of the survivors, the deported and the uprooted. And then let us reflect and ask ourselves, how should we regard our being here today? In a place where there is no humanity, strive to be human. Let us hold out our hands and rise up. Let this gathering be our remembrance and our responsibility. Our family lost 120 relatives in Germany.
Our observance of Yom Hashoah V hagevurah this year is uniquely shadowed by the horrors perpetrated by Hamas on October 7th and the continued captivity of our brothers and sisters in Gaza for now 212 days. We are blessed to be able to gather together tonight, but we know that we are incomplete as long as we are not all home with our families. I invite us to please rise and sing together, Achenu. Okay. Achenu, kol Beit Yisrael. Achenu, kol Beit Yisrael. Hanetunim batzara, batzara uvashivya, haomlim ben bayam, uben bayabasha. Achenu, kol Beit Yisrael. Achenu, kol Beit Yisrael. Hanetunim batzara, batzara uvashivya, haomdim ben bayam, uben bayabasha. Hamakom yerachem, yerachem alehem, veyotziem mitzara lirvacha, umehafela leora, umeshibun ligula hashta, bagala ubizman karim. Hamakom yerachem, yerachem alehem, veyotziem mitzara lirvacha, umefela leora, umeshibud ligola hashta, bagala uizman karim. Please be seated.
We listen to the survivors' call. The age of the Holocaust survivors is drawing to a close. Before long, no one will be left to say, I was there, I saw, I remember what happened. All that will be left will be the books of research and literature, pictures and films and archives of testimonies. This will be a new era. The dark inheritance of the Shoah that was so indelibly stamped on the survivors' souls and hearts will become a historical mission and responsibility imposed upon humanity to fill with content and substance.
Our gathering honors the dignity of the lives of Jews before the war. We choose not to focus solely on the destruction that followed, but to appreciate and celebrate the dignity, beauty, complexity, and creativity of their lives. The lives we remember span countries and continents, vocations and social classes, and a range of religious and secular identities.
These things I remember. I remember the fathers and the mothers, women, men, and children, speakers of all languages and dialects, who built their lives over hundreds of years, lived lives of faith and commandments, life of Torah study, lives of poetry and tradition, lives of songs and festive meals, lives of mutual responsibility and aid, life of financial and work, life of science and art, life of societal improvement, life of Christianliness and creativity, lives of prayer of Zion. We remember their lives. They are the pillars of our existence.
We all come from somewhere. And we've entered into this holy space to do the holy work of remembrance, of crying, of confronting, honoring, and reflecting. And we've all come from somewhere to do that. And as we come in, we form a holy community. And so at this time, to help us strengthen those bonds, I invite you to turn to those around you. Introduce yourself and where you have come from. And if you had family who perished in the Shoah, whose memories are you carrying with you today? Let's do that sacred work now.
Okay, we'd like to invite you to wrap up your introductions. I promise there will be opportunities to keep talking after our program is over. There will be tea and cookies. So we're going to continue now with our program.
I will remember. I will remember the Jews and their diasporas and their communities from east to west. In Europe, on the shores of the Mediterranean and throughout the Middle East, those who were destroyed or displaced. And I will remember the Jewish communities that stood beside their brethren in days of destruction.
We mourn our indescribable collective and personal losses through song, readings, personal memories, and prayer.
For all these things I weep. Even if I have no words and you have few, our reach falling short and our language stammering, we awaken the memory of an ocean of indescribable torments, mankind's most enormous slaughter, with the very muteness of our lips and with a sadness that transcends language. For these things I weep, for the parents who were murdered, for the brothers, the sisters, for the children who dreamed. For these things I weep, for the house that was destroyed, for the neighbors who betrayed,
for the street from which they were driven, for the synagogues that were shattered, for the whole nation whose life was crushed. For these things I weep, for each person, their world, and their mystery, for their loves, their despairs, and their dreams, for their study, their deeds, and their pains, for their memories, their anger, and their laughter, for each person and their life.
In 1944, at 22 years old, my mother Edith, known affectionately as Dutsi, was taken from her home in Oradea, Hungary, along with her mother, and put into a railroad freight car. Until then, they had been led to believe that they were safe. The Hungarian government, they believed, would never allow the Nazis to take their Jews. Upon arrival at Auschwitz, she was separated from her mother and told her mother was being taken for a shower. It was the last time she saw her mother. Soon after, the letter and numbers D4077 were tattooed on the inside of her right forearm, an indelible reminder of her past until her dying day at age 97. My mother was one of the infamous Dr. Mengele's experiments to permanently sterilize the Jews and prevent them from procreating. Had he been successful, I would not be here. For that matter, had there not been a Holocaust, I would not be here. My mother would not have emigrated as a refugee to New York. My father would not have emigrated to New York. It's a curious conundrum for me. My father, Pesach, anglicized to Peter, lost 200 cousins, 2 sisters, and 3 brothers. At 14 years old, he was forced to watch his mother beaten to death for answering a Nazi interrogation truthfully. The neighbors say, "You have a dairy cow. Where is it?" they asked. "We were starving. We slaughtered it for food," she answered. After that, my father was taken to Dachau. As a barber apprenticed at 13 years old after his bar mitzvah, he was soon put to work shaving incoming prisoners' heads bald. In between arriving trains, he would load the skeletal remains of dead prisoners onto wheelbarrows and take them to the crematorium to be burned. For all the Holocaust documentaries we watched together as I was growing up, that was the only thing he ever said to me. "I used to do that." Once again, had there not been a Holocaust, I would not be here. My father was also offered refugee status in Australia, but was afraid if he didn't like it, he couldn't afford to get back to Europe, so he chose New York and the U.S. Random decisions with life-changing consequences. I watch my children growing up and interacting with their grandparents, something I never knew. The joy it brought them all, and still bring my children with their soon-to-be 90-year-old grandmother, was and is a pure delight. The legacy of the Holocaust and my own reconciliation with it has been a lifelong journey. There are constant reminders. I thought it was just something I was sensitive to, but a few years ago I started keeping a journal of when, where, and how often the words Holocaust, Hitler, and Nazis were mentioned. I came to realize it's not just me. In the past 18 months, those words were used in print and broadcast media 255 times. 255. On average, more than 3 times a week in and week out. I will continue to work to reconcile my relationship with the Holocaust, my responsibility to my parents, and the 6 million others. My hope is that I can do it justice. Thank you.
For those who would like, I invite you to come up and light a memorial candle
And if you would like to share the name of a family member, a family, a community at the microphone. So at this point, you can come up and we'll light some candles.
Henry Francis and Erica Gage. Kravitz family, Lubetzky family, a little girl Malka.
Push that forward. Now press the trigger. Bye-bye.
I lit the candle in memory of my grandfather, whom I was named after, named Eliyahu Alchek, who was among the Jews that were deported from Salonika, Greece. The whole community was sent to Auschwitz and was annihilated there.
Solomon Hoffman and Martha Arnsberg Hoffman, my grandparents.
Fritz and Johannes Stransky.
Fanica Klaus, Adela Ginsberg, Rosa Harper, Domka Klaus.
Walter Steinweg, Louis Steinweg, Rosa Steinweg, and other members of the Steinweg family.
Naftali Chaim Manheit.
Avram Ben Shlomo.
Devorah Tulper, my great-grandmother, who I was named after.
Shiva Leiser, Amalia Leiser, Louise Radman, and Berta Leiserovich.
Genya and Martin Gross.
Batsheva, Alicia, Sabina, Hennek, Rosa.
לעילוי נשמת אלפרד, אלזה ובנימין נוישטטל.
To the extended family of Grandma Leah Parnes and the Yevelson family and the Lithuanian Jewish community.
Most of the entire family of the Gilbert family, from Ephraim, Tzvi, Shoshana, Hannah, Rachel, and Rivka.
מיכאל נדלר, דוד נדלר.
David Linder, Leon Linder, Tova Gita Pachter, then Helen Pachter, and Esther Linder.
I invite you to please rise if you're able. El Malei Rachamim Shochen Bamromim Hamsei Menucha Nechona תחת כנפי השכינה במעלות קדושים וטהורים כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים את נשמות 6 מיליון אחינו כנפיו לעולמים ויצרור החיים את נשמתם אדוני הוא נחלתם וינוחו בשלום על משכבם ונאמר
God full of mercy, you who dwell in the heights, shelter them beneath the wings of your presence, high among the holy and the pure, who shine like the brilliant heavens. Shelter them. Shelter the souls of our sisters and brothers of the house of Israel who were slaughtered in the Shoah. Small children, women, men, strangled, suffocated, burned to ash. They revered your name. Their souls passed into your care. Let Eden be their resting place. Master of mercy, drape them and keep them forever in your protecting presence. Bind their souls to the living and to life. God, you are their inheritance. Where they rest, ease them with peace. And we say, Amen.
Mourners Kaddish. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה. ועלמד דברי כרותי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון וביום מכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יש שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולעלמי עלמיה יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי קודשה בריחו לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דאמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן. יש למה רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן.
Please be seated. In this section, we confront the challenge of the human capacity to do evil. Let us reflect on the evil perpetrated during the Shoah and how this obligates us.
We will remember. We will remember the power of evil to spread terror then and now, its ability to disguise itself and slip into our souls with or without our knowledge.
My name is Joyce Maskell, and I'm the only child of 2 Holocaust survivors from Austria. My mother spent a total of 3.5 years in concentration camps Terezin, Auschwitz, and Bergen-Belsen. After her liberation in April 1945, she learned she was the sole survivor of her immediate family. Her mother and father died in Auschwitz, and her brother in Buchenwald. Early in the war years, my father spent 6 months in Dachau and then Buchenwald. He was miraculously released from Buchenwald right before Kristallnacht in November 1938. Shortly thereafter, he and his mother fled to Shanghai, China, where they lived for 10 years, while his father died in Auschwitz. My parents met and married in Toronto, Canada in 1950. A few years later, they moved to Southern California, which is where I grew up. My parents spoke with me often about their families and lives before and during the war, including many incredible stories of luck, survival, and divine intervention. The Holocaust always weighed heavily on me and left an imprint on my psyche, just like my mother's number tattoo from Auschwitz on her left forearm. It colored my perspective, my values and beliefs, and informed the person I am today, someone with a very strong sense of good and evil, right and wrong. In college, I wore a patch on my jeans pocket with a clenched fist, Jewish star, and words, "Never again," the symbol of the radical Jewish Defense League. Because of my background, I directly confronted a coworker when he made a grossly anti-Semitic comment, telling me that the meat he was cooking on the barbecue at a work party was Jew meat. A couple of years ago, I stood up for myself when a woman, a fellow University of California master gardener, standing right next to me, raised her right arm in a Heil Hitler salute and said, "Sieg Heil." My parents did not teach me to confront anti-Semitism. That I learned on my own, just by being their child.
Liberating Buchenwald. We headed for the woods, talking softly to each other. The talk full of wonderment, the hows and the whys. We had no answers. As limited as our combat experience had been, we had seen dead men. We had seen wounded men from both sides with the immediacy of battle, with no time for conjecture. We had done what we could for the wounded and then had got on with the job that had to be done. None of us, no one in our company, even amongst those who had been the originals, were prepared for what we were now surrounded by. It was not human. It did not seem real, but it was all too real. It was the only life that some of the prisoners had known for years. Maybe it was all too human. Maybe this is what we are.
Chaim Ra'anan, survivor of the Holocaust and October 7. I never thought that as a Holocaust survivor, I would need to hide for my life again. On the morning of October 7, I heard constant sirens railing in my kibbutz. I thought it was just another barrage of rockets from Gaza, which we were already accustomed to. No one could have imagined the carnage that was taking place. We started to get text messages that Hamas terrorists were all over the kibbutz, and that they were trying to break into the safe rooms where people were hiding. Hamas terrorists set fire to a lot of homes in order to force their occupants to come out. It was pure luck that the terrorists didn't reach my house, and my entire family, who lived all around the kibbutz, survived the massacre. I don't know what I would have done if one of my grandchildren or great-grandchildren were kidnapped to Gaza. The massacre wiped out about 10% of the kibbutz's 1,000 residents. More than 100 residents of the kibbutz were either murdered or kidnapped and taken to Gaza that day. For me, it was a second Holocaust. During the Holocaust, I didn't know personally the 6 million who perished. But in the Kibbutz Be'eri massacre, I know almost every single person who was murdered that day.
We'll invite now all of the 7th graders from around our schools and our communities to come up and to lead us in singing Eli Eli.
Who is a person? In the face of evil, cruelty, murder, destruction, and erasure, and in a moment of absolute powerlessness, something incredible happened. Men, women, and children, both Jews and righteous Gentiles, discovered ways to stand up for human dignity.
Like most day school kids in Melbourne, Australia in the 1990s, I never gave a lot of thought to commemorating the Shoah. Not because it wasn't important, but because it was rather commonplace to have grandparents who were survivors, who had Yiddish names, who had numbers on their arms, to know where your family came from, and if the dishes made at your Shabbat table were more Galician or more Slavic. Both of my parents were born immediately after the war. My mother in Prague and my father in Paris, where cousins from Lodz had brought them out of the displaced persons camp in Bergen-Belsen. All of my grandparents had either been married or engaged before the war. My father, Albert, spent his life being told He was a replacement for Zayda Moshe's first son, who'd notoriously been sold out by that bastard Rumkovsky in the Lodz ghetto. Zayda Moshe was hastily paired with Bubba Nomi at Bergen-Belsen after he was liberated at Dachau. My mother's mother, Helen, told me of her great love in Chist, Czechoslovakia, which is now modern-day Ukraine, before the war, and how she settled for Grandpa Joe after her liberation from Auschwitz. Life would never be the same without her sisters, Yenta and Rivka, for whom I am named. Both of their families sought refuge as far away as possible and had put their names into the visa lotteries that so many survivors took up the moment they could to be free of the very continent that aimed to wipe them out but failed in its genocidal mission. Both families sought the US and Israel. My father's family in Paris also had the ability to apply for Australia, which is exactly where they landed in 1951. My mother's family escaped Prague before the Soviet takeover. She left Prague as Kreindl, became Clara on the Lower East Side of New York, and started kindergarten in Cleveland, Ohio as Karen. I stand here today, many, many journeys later, to honor the incredible strength and resolve all of my grandparents had not to simply survive, but to thrive. To ensure the next generation, and the generation after that, and the generation after that, despite having seen and suffered the literal worst of humanity, could thrive. Their commitment to ensure the continuation of Jewish life is a badge of honor that I carry with me in my own name, and I've given all three of my children their names. In my professional life, I strive to make sure my students know their responsibility to know their names too. Yehi zichram baruch.
Who is the person? Who is the man who guarded his humanity even when transformed into dust? A father who sent away his daughter to live. A mother who sent away her son. A granddaughter who fought for her grandmother's life. A man who held the hand of a stranger. Who were the woman and man who took up arms and inscribed new lines in the chronicles of freedom? A man who kept his commandments bound in tefillin. A woman who issued forged papers and who stole across borders.
Who are the men and women who wrote, painted, told stories, and dreamed? Those who photographed and documented human testimony. The one who left and the one who loved. The woman who scribbled recipes to make the hunger subside. And those who shared a slice of bread. Who is the man who lifted the collapsed during roll call? The woman who completed the forced labor of her sister. Those who shared a word of encouragement. And those who, at twilight, under the shadow of the crematorium pillar of smoke, stood in prayer and song.
Who are the children who played and dreamed, and who wrote their poems between fences, and those who never lost hold of their little hands, even as they walked to their death? Who is the man, the woman, the child, and the elder, who sanctified the image of humankind?
Yizkor for righteous Gentiles. Remember, people of Israel, the righteous Gentiles, who placed their own lives in danger for the sake of our persecuted and tortured brothers and sisters during the Shoah, 1939 to 1945, and who were as shining stars in the overwhelming darkness of evil. Those who spoke out at a time of silence, those who offered sanctuary and a lease on life in the eye of the murderous storm, those who supported those who were failing and extended a helping hand, food, and clothing, who answered the cry of men, women, and children, men and women, workers of the land and city dwellers, of humble standing and of high rank, people of faith and conscience. In the very valley of the shadow of death, these men and women stood by our people, and from the fiery inferno they saved the few and the many. They kept the beacon of humanity alight, and when all around them humanity dimmed. Remember, people of Israel, their grandness of spirit, their heroism, and their pure hearts. May God bind their souls in the bond of life, and may it come to pass as it was written. As the whirlwind passes, so is the wicked no more, but the righteous is an everlasting foundation.
Hi everyone, my name is Emma Paskett. I'm currently a second year at Santa Clara University. Today I'll be talking about one of my favorite people in the world, my Zayda Seymour Hoff. My Zayda was born in 1941 in Poland. Following the Holocaust, he and his family found themselves in a displaced persons camp for a couple years. Eventually they followed a path similar to many Jews of the time, immigrating to New York. Being a third generation and having the privilege of that, I've always felt a sense of responsibility to enjoy my education and enjoy all the opportunities I've had that he did not. Specifically, when I was younger and I would complain or be annoyed about something I had to do, I would think then, what right do I have complaining when my Zayda spent his childhood in the ghetto? There was a time my Zayda didn't think of himself as a Holocaust survivor. Now he does, and he's one of the only survivors left at Congregation Sinai. Growing up, I assumed everyone in my family shared the same connection to Judaism. During a dinner with my Zayda, he shared to me that when my great-grandma Ruthie fell ill, he became angry at God and the world. He made a deal with God to deepen his practice of Judaism if she lived longer, which she did. Hearing that made me understand my journey with Judaism can be different and evolve over time. My Zayda has lived a hard life at times, but also a fulfilled one. The stories he shares with me affects how I live my life day to day. He's always been a role model to me on what hard work and gratitude looks like. Because of what he went through, it inspires me, and I feel an obligation to carry these traditions.
The last letter of Mordecai Nilevich, commander of the Jewish fighters in the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. It is impossible to put into words what we've been through. One thing is clear. What happened exceeded our boldest dreams. I feel that great things are happening, and what we dared do is of great, enormous importance. It is impossible to describe the conditions under which the Jews of the ghetto are now living. Only a few will be able to hold out. The remainder will die sooner or later. Their fate is decided. With the aid of our transmitter, we heard the marvelous report on our fighting by the Shavitz radio station. The fact that we are remembered beyond the ghetto walls encourages us in our struggle. Peace go with you, my friend. Perhaps we may still meet again. The dream of my life has risen to become fact. Self-defense in the ghetto will have been a reality. Jewish armed resistance and revenge are facts. I have been a witness to the magnificent, heroic fighting of Jewish men in battle.
for singing the Tikva Bezrais.
After we've mourned the destruction and loss, after we've told of the evil and of standing in opposition to it, let us now ask, what can we learn here and now about how to remember responsibly? Just as we are responsible for the memory of those lost and those who suffered during the Shoah, we are responsible for our actions today.
Two elements are inextricably interwoven within the Jewish tradition, zachor and shamor, remembering and guarding. We call upon these elements as we commemorate the Shoah. Zachor, what is the nature of our responsibility to remember? Shamor, what does the memory of the Shoah call us to do?
Good evening. My name is Tom Marks, and I am a care manager for Holocaust survivors and older adults at Jewish Family Services of Silicon Valley. JFS is the only agency serving Holocaust survivors in Santa Clara County. We currently serve approximately 250 survivors. Their average age is 90, and most of them live below the poverty line. During the war, they all suffered from starvation, cold, and horrible living conditions. As a result, they now face serious medical issues as they age. Unfortunately, they live primarily on Social Security income, so whenever there is an unexpected expense, they are forced to choose between paying for heat or food, medication, or rent. JFS works with Kavod Chef, an organization dedicated to helping Holocaust survivors with their emergency expenses. Kavod Chef matches every dollar, one for one, that is raised through our community's Operation Dignity campaign. The request for these funds is only increasing as the survivors age and their need continue to grow. Here is one of hundreds of clients' stories we hear every day. Bluma was born in, in a village near Kiev. In 1941, the family fled to Moscow, leaving many of their relatives behind. Bluma's father died fighting in the war, and all her relatives who remained in Kiev were murdered at Babi Yar, the site of one of the largest mass shootings of Jews in German-occupied Europe. Bluma is single and does not have children. She has severe Parkinson's disease and a history of falls and injuries. She lives on a Social Security income of $1,931 a month, and her rent is $875 a month, leaving very little money to cover food, utilities, and other essential items. Bluma needed prevention safety tools for the home, but was unable to afford the necessary items with her limited income. Kavod Chef dollars helped her purchase the needed items so she could continue living safely in her home. It is our collective responsibility to help the survivors still living in our community today who need our support more than ever before. If you would like to support these survivors, please visit Jewish Silicon Valley website for more information. Thank you.
Good evening. What you see up there is my mother's handwriting. And before she passed away, she was 57 years old when she passed, and I said, "Mom, I need your story, please." It was before the Shoah project started. So I am now reading my mother's story, and she wrote it phonetically. Her English was broken, but yet the true meaning of every word resonates. My name is Chaya Chapnik Shapiro. Maiden name was Shapiro. Born 1921, Smargon, Poland. My mother's name was Rachalea. Father was Alter. I had 3 brothers, 2 sisters besides me. Their names are Yuda, Asher, Itzik, Celia, and Malta. The war broke out by us in 41. The German occupied Smargon. Right in the beginning, I lost my 2 brothers. They took them as war prisoners. Then 1 year later, in the ghetto, the Germans wanted workers for the Arbeitslager. And 1 person from a family had to go. So I went instead of my father. I was tall for my age. If my father would gone, we would all starve to death. My mother was not well from all the aggravation, and I think she died 3 months later in the ghetto. But my father and 3 younger children perished in Pinar, and that is the end of my dear family. And that happened all in 1942. I survived in all kinds of camps, some better, some worse. I was a strong 13-year-old girl and a good worker, so the Germans liked me. In 1943, I was very sick. I had typhus, and my cousin Anya took good care of me, and I survived. Then we had to go to another camp in Latvia. I was chosen to work for the SS to keep house for them. We had it good over there, clean place and plenty of food. I was always with Anya together, never separated. When I had food, she had food, and vice versa. I was liberated in Bergen-Belsen on April 15, 1945. I was 17 years old. No parents to guide me, and I was free. I could do anything I wanted to. I had no home, no clothes, but somehow I had some morals. That's where I grew up. And that is where I was educated, in Hitler's camp. That was my youth. My parents met and got married in Bergen-Belsen displaced persons camp. I was one of the 5,000 babies born in Bergen-Belsen from 1945 to 1950. And the picture that you see is my first birthday in Bergen-Belsen. My parents were the only survivors of their family, and I don't know, hundreds perished, I don't know the number. but every one of the individuals in there were Holocaust survivors liberated from Bergen-Belsen, and all of those babies were born in Bergen-Belsen, and there I am celebrating my first birthday. And there, that is a picture of me at the age of 2, and a very dear friend of mine, when she saw that picture, I thought it was a cute picture of a little girl, right? But the story is greater than that. Here I am in the field in Bergen-Belsen, and the building behind was SS officers' barracks. Here is a new life beginning under the worst circumstances where 12 million people perished, were murdered, 6 million of them Jews. And we're starting a new life. And then I was 2.5 years old when we immigrated to Rochester, New York. And that is the new chapter of our life. And I just want to share with you also that I speak to young students today and to your generation, my dears. I just finished speaking to over 50 young people, 10 years old, and talked about the Holocaust, talked a little bit about my story. But everyone who survived during the Holocaust survived because of the kindness of someone. And I talked to the children about the Kind Bar. How many of you like the protein bar Kind Bar? You know the story of the Kind Bar? Ubinsky is the creator of the Kind Bar business. His father was a Holocaust survivor. And he taught him, he said, I survived because of the kindness of someone. So the Kind Bar is that living legacy. No matter what the circumstances are, we will survive because of the kindness of someone. And everyone who survived the Holocaust was helped by someone. And I just want to share with you, and the rabbi said I should do this, is I got some thank you notes from the students about the Kind Bar, and this is one of them. Dear Mrs. Ruth, I learned so much about the terrible time. If anyone survived, it was because of the kindness of someone's heart. I learned about the Holocaust and death camps. I learned about your parents' stories, and I learned about the power of kindness. Thank you so much. And this last one, I learned so much from your talk. It was interesting to learn about the Holocaust. That morning, I did not know the Holocaust existed. It's nice to know that even in the worst of times, people can still be kind to each other. And that is my message for this generation. You can make a difference. Your voice makes a difference. And we will all pray and be blessed for the remembrance that we have of those we lost and the generations to continue.
שחקי שחקי החלומות, זו אני החולם שח, שחקי כי באדם אמין, כי עודני מאמין בך, שחקי באדם אמין, כי עודני מאמין בך, כי עוד נפשי דרור שואפת, לא מכרתיה לעגל פס, כי עוד אמין האדם, גם ברוחו רוח עז. אמינה גם בעתיד, אף אם ירחק זה היום, אך ביבוא יישאו שלום, אז וברכה לאום ילום, אך ביבוא יישאו שלום, אז וברכה לאום ילום.
לפיכך נברא האדם יחיד, ללמדך שכל המאבד נפש אחת מישראל מלא עליו הכתוב כאילו איבד עולם מלא. בכל המקיים נפש אחת מישראל מלא עליו הכתוב כאילו קיים עולם מלא. The human was created as a unique being in the world to teach that one who destroys a single soul has destroyed the entire world. And one who saves a single soul has saved the entire world. I invite you to repeat after me. We enter. We remembered. We lamented. We confronted. We honored. We reflected. Let's say together in Hebrew. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam yotzer adam. Tama Hitkansut Yom Hashoah V hagevurah Adam. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who created humanity. Here ends our gathering, our Hitkansut, for the remembrance of the Shoah and the Gevurah, the heroism, and our affirmation of the dignity of human life.
Thank you to the many people who made tonight's Hitkansut meaningful. Our presenters, those who shared their testimony, singers, musicians, and every one of us who came this evening with open hearts. And of course to the Shalom Hartman Institute for developing this Seder Hitkansut. May we see each other again soon for happy occasions.
אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב עם עיניים, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד.
הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. תודה.
Again, worse than the worst. Saying Friday. You have the worst. It wasn't the worst rehearsal, but they're like they're singing dribbling like and laughing. Yiddish is funny. And I'm like no. And then when they were rehearsing in here, they're singing so far. We have the best very. Thanks for sharing your story. I didn't actually, but I did.
Really, I'm worried about this English language.
זה כבר, אני לא אומר את זה כאילו כזה, כן, זה חסים לך, לא, תרצי, תלמדי מתמטיקה, תקני לקוחות, מה שלא חסים לך. מה ההשפעה שלך? תגדל. לעצמי קצת חוויות, כמה סרטי פגר. את צריכה לעשות לא חסר לך. לא יהיה נורא. קשה לי. זה קצת אין לי מסע. כאילו, הלכת לבוא מילה. כן.